Today's story is Wiggling Worms at Work by Wendy Pfeffer and illustrated by Steve Jenkins. This is a Let's Read and Find Out About book. Let's read and find out about worms. Crawling through the dirt, worms are hard at work, helping plants to grow. Worms help the fruit and vegetables we eat by loosening the soil and feeding the plants. Read and find out about these wiggling wonders. Wiggling worms at work. Down in the ground, under your feet, thousands of worms wiggle around flower bulbs and tunnel under trees. They twist and turn, eating almost anything in their way. These wiggling worms are at work. Farmers plow their fields to loosen the soil. Crumbly soil lets the roots of plants spread out and grow. Worms also loosen the soil as they wiggle along. They are called nature's plows. As worms twist and turn, they push aside loose soil. This creates tunnels. Air flows along these tunnels. Rainwater trickles down. Roots drink up. Moist ground helps plants grow better. Worms tunnel in hard, packed soil by swallowing it. The soil goes in the worm's mouth, slides into the crop, then passes down to the gizzard. Worms do not have teeth. Mussels, fine grains of sand, and small stones in the gizzard grind the soil. Worms digest leaf and plant bits that are found in soil, just as you digest a salad. What's left passes through a worm's body and comes out its end in the form of pellets called worm castings. These castings make good plant food. They help fruit and vegetables grow bigger and better. Sometimes worms crawl above ground. When they tunnel back down into the ground, they pull dead leaves and plants down with them. These plants make the soil better as they rot. Seeds come down too. Some of these seeds send out roots. Seedlings sprouts. Worms help new plants begin to grow. The worm wiggles along, stretching and slinking, stretching and slinking. With all its wiggling, twisting, and turning, it's a wonder a worm knows where it's headed. It has no eyes, no nose, no ears, and hardly any brain at all. But a worm knows what's happening nearby. It feels vibrations on the ground and senses a hungry robin. Quickly, the worm slips back into its burrow. Hiding is the only way it can protect itself from enemies. Worms also hide from the sun. They must live in damp soil since they breathe air through their moist skin. In the hot sun, their skins dry up and they can't breathe. Sometimes worms crawl to the surface to find food. They select dead and decaying plants to drag back to their burrows. These plants contain bacteria that worms eat. Healthy plants do not. Worms pick leaves with pointed ends rather than round ones. No one knows why. Worms also eat fungi and mold. They slurp the hair-like strands of mold, the same way you might slurp strands of spaghetti. Worms eat at the entrance of their burrows. Then each worm covers any leftover plants with its casings. This pile of worm casings is called a midden. It hides the top of the worm's burrow and acts like a door to keep out bad weather and rain. When the weather cools, a ring-like cocoon forms near the head of each worm that has mated. Slowly, the worm begins to move backwards. The cocoon inches forward on the worm's body, just as a ring on your finger would move. The cocoon passes over openings in the worm's body. Up to 30 eggs slip out of the openings and into the cocoon. In a few minutes, the cocoon slips off the worm's head, just as the ring would slip off your finger. The ends of the cocoon close. Inside the cocoon, the eggs are fertilized. In about 3 weeks, the eggs hatch. Out of about 30 eggs, only 3 or 4 wormlets emerge from every cocoon. From each cocoon, they look like tiny pieces of cotton thread, less than an inch long, but they are fully developed worms and live completely on their own. They do not need their parents' help. The wormlets inch along, finding bits of dead plants to eat, dragging with them their tunnels, and covering any leftovers with their casings. They wiggle underground, loosening the soil and making tunnels. Even tiny wormlets help the soil. These babies grow fast. In 6 weeks, they are adult worms. In winter, the soil near the surface freezes. The worms plug up their tunnels and move down to warmer soil. They stay there until spring. They wiggle up, tunneling, twisting, and turning until they're right under your feet again. Vegetables and flowers grow better. Trees grow bigger. Grass grows greener because there are thousands of wiggling worms at work. Find out more about worms. A worm of your own. So these are some ideas that you can have, that you can do. So you can find an earthworm. The worm you are most likely to find in North America are called night crawlers. Go outside after a rain and look for a night crawler in the ground, or go out at night with a flashlight to find one. You can also buy night crawlers at a fishing supply store, such as as a bait and tackle store, if you can't find them outside. So you can examine your worm. Feel the rings on its body. See how it bends and wiggles and twists and turns. Then you can carefully pull the worm through your fingers. Does it feel smooth and slippery from head to tail? When you slide your finger from its tail to its head, can you feel the bristles? Then watch how the worm uses these bristles to walk. Put the worm on your arm. Feel how it fastens the bristles onto your arm. See it stretch out long and thin to move forward. Then see it pull its head. See it pull its back end up. Now your worm is short and fat, but it will be long and thin as it moves forward again. Be sure to let your worm go. Place it in a moist spot. Then you can draw pictures of how your worm walked and draw pictures of the different animals of other animals and how they move. Some animals swim, some animals fly, some hop. Here's an example of another experiment you can do. This here is examining, do earthworms really hop the soil? So you can try the following experiment to see whether earthworms really make rich soil. You're going to need 2 flower pots, soil from your yard, and casings from outside a worm's tunnel, and some seeds. Any kind of seed will do. You can use pumpkin seeds, watermelon seeds, apple seeds, grass seeds, lima beans. Any of those will grow pretty easily. Then you're going to fill 1 flower pot with soil. Then you're going to fill each with soil and fill the other with soil and the casings. Then you're going to plant the seeds in each pot. You're going to put flower pots in the sun and water both plants equally. And then take notes each day. Pay attention. Does the one with the worm casings, does the plants grow better in that one or the one without them? So those are some ways that you can do some science experiments with